guys, this is Stephanie and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I'm coming to you with my 10 most disappointing books of 2017. I know this video is a little late, but I've had so many great videos to film over the new year that it's taking like all month to get these videos out, but I'm having a lot of fun with them, so I'm gonna say it's okay. Also to note, it is freezing in my basement, but I have a heater. Right now it's pointed at my feet because my dogs aren't sitting on my feet keeping them warm today. Boo. I have to show you guys this. I have on slippers today, and I know I can't get my foot this high, so I'll just take the slipper off and I'll show it to you. This is my slipper, and I'm gonna put it back on because the floor is cold. But if you could only see my feet now, they look, you know, hairy. So I'm probably gonna keep this brief because it still is pretty cold in the basement today. So basically, to me, a disappointing book is a book that I was expecting more of and I got less. So these aren't necessarily the worst books that I read in 2017, but they are all books that I was expecting a little more of. Most of these are like 3-star ratings for me. I think I have 1 2-star, but all the rest are 3-star ratings. The other 1 and 2 stars that I had last year, I wasn't expecting much from some of them, so that's why they're not on this video, because they didn't disappoint me. I kind of went in thinking I'd be disappointed. Now, why would I read a book like that? I don't know, but I'm not going to do that anymore. So these are all books that I thought were going to be great, like at least a 4-star read, if not 5, and they all fell a little short for me. These are in no particular order of disappointment. They're just the top 10 that disappointed me last year. So I'm going to preface this with what I'm sure you guys have already heard. These are all my own opinions. These do not have to be your opinions. You can have your own opinion, and I think that's fantastic. Also, I don't hate all these books. They just disappointed me. I was expecting this, and I got this. Please don't post an angry comment if you're like, that's my favorite book series in the world and you're a horrible, horrible person. You can say, you didn't like it, man, I loved it. And we can like and dislike the different books, the same books. It's totally okay. So if I am dissing your favorite book, please don't take it personally. I'm not dissing you, and I may not even like hate the book series. There are probably little things I didn't like about it, and that's about it. I can be a pretty harsh critic when it comes to books. First one is going to be a series of unfortunate events. This is the first 3. I read all 11 last year, and I have to admit, it just fell too flat. There were a few of the books that I was okay with, like I could see a plot progressing, things were happening, and again, maybe if I were 11, I would have enjoyed these books, but I feel like a really good middle grade book you can read when you're 35 and you'll enjoy it. So for that, I'm gonna say I was very disappointed. I've heard people rave about this series and how great it is, and I kept thinking, okay, there's gonna be payoff. There's gonna be payoff. I got to the last book, there was no payoff. Like, not to spoil it, but nothing happened. So I guess I don't spoil anything because nothing happened, and I was just disappointed in that, and frankly disappointed in the whole series. I don't think I'll read another book by Lemony Snicket, even if he puts out a 14th book and he's like, okay, JK y'all, the end wasn't really the end. Here's some actual wrap up. I don't know if I'd read that one because they disappointed me. My next disappointing read is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. This one I talked about in my 2-star, 5-star reads. I can link that down below. I'm not going to go into detail. I just didn't like it. Like the writing, I didn't like. I didn't like the character development. I did like the last like 20 pages. People have told me that the series gets better as it goes, so I'm going to give it a chance. Probably this year. I'm going to try to read it when I'm in the mood for maybe something light and a little romance or something, because if I go into reading it when I'm not in the mood to read it, I'm going to hate it. Like, I'm like that with any book though. So I'm going to try and gauge my emotions and see just when is the right time for me to read, and I will continue the series because I've told it's gotten better. But I was expecting a 5-star read, and I was just disappointed. Next we have Warcross by Marie Lu. Now, this one I read in like November, and I was expecting this to be fantastic. It was compared to Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which I loved. I read that in 2016, and I didn't know what to expect from it, but I just fell in love with the book and I was like, holy stars, this is great. I'll be rereading it this spring, by the way, before the movie comes out. And I was disappointed in Warcross because I was expecting something like that, and it really wasn't anything like that. The only thing that was similar is it was futuristic and they have like a virtual world thing. The virtual world was different enough, and I didn't actually mind the virtual world. What I minded was how simple the main character was. Like, I had a really hard time like being on her side. I felt like there were red flags and she just ignored them because she's led by her feelings. And that's just, I mean, people do that in real life and it irritates me. So when people do it in a book, it irritates me more because somebody has thought this through and chosen to make that character do that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. There were a lot of plot holes in it too, and saying it's the first in a series that they may wrap things up. But I gave it a 3-ish star read, somewhere 3 point something, because it was okay. Like, it wasn't terrible, but I was expecting like amazing, and it was fine. And I was disappointed in that book. I expected a lot more, and I know a ton of people loved it, but I didn't love it. I might continue in the series. Maybe I'll probably wait for other people's reviews. But then again, they already gave them good reviews. I don't know. I may or may not continue. I don't know. Next disappointing read I have is Our Dark Dowe by Victoria Schwab. This was super disappointing. I read the first book last year. I gave it 5 stars. It was fantastic. And then this one, I was like, I don't know. And a lot of people really loved it and were like, oh, it was so good. It was such a good conclusion. And I didn't like it as a conclusion. I didn't like the addition of sorrow. I thought sorrow was just like a driven, like, I'm driven to kill, like a robotic character almost. And I didn't like that. And if they were trying to contrast sorrow with August, they didn't do a very good job of doing that, because sorrow, who was supposed to be a main character, had no arc, nothing to that character, and that was not okay. I mean, you have to have a character arc. So that character in particular was disappointing. I was not satisfied with the end of the book either. I honestly, looking back, I feel like it didn't necessarily need a sequel. Like, I kind of wanted one at the time, but this was so disappointing. I was like, never mind, take it back. We'll just have one book in this series. It can be a standalone. This Savage Song was the first V.E. Schwab that I read, so I just feel like I loved that book and I had high expectations for all of her books, and so far that's the only one I have loved. This book just was supposed to be a 5-star read, and it was like a 3.2. And on that note, and this is going to make some of you unhappy, I have the Shades of Magic trilogy going on my disappointing reads. Basically, I expected these to be like the amazing 5-star reads that everybody was telling me they were going to be. Everybody was like, these are amazing. Read these books. These are so good. These will change your life. These are so good. And I did read them, and I was like, well, they were fine, but they weren't amazing. Like, the magic system was good, but it wasn't like, it wasn't thorough. Like, there were holes in it. And there's a whole world of gray and red and white that they don't even touch. They stay in this little area and they don't touch any of those. And they allude to that they will, but then they don't. And that was a very big trouble spot for me. Like, they don't even talk about anything else. It's just this little world. And there are just plot holes about how the evil is progressing in the books. Like, it's just, why would the evil do that? If the evil's so darn smart, why didn't he do this other thing? So, and I usually like a good villain, but I felt like this villain was like weak. And if he has so much magic, why didn't he do other things? Like, to me, there were too many holes for me to love this. I think if it wasn't hyped, honestly, I probably would have given it like a 4.5. It would probably have been like, these are really good. There are some problems, but these are really good. I ended up giving the first one a 5 because I think I was kind of caught up in the hype. And then as I read the second and third book, I realized, you know, it wasn't that good. It was okay. It had holes. And I think I might have given it a 5 thinking the next 2 books are going to fill some of those holes. But it didn't. So these aren't books that I hated. They're just books that disappointed me. They're books that I felt should have been better, especially for all the hype. And if they weren't hyped, again, I probably would have given them all 4 point something ratings. But they have been overhyped. They've been overdone. And I don't know. From the talk everybody was giving, I think I just wanted more. My next disappointing read is Giggorilla by Ashley Poston. This was a super disappointing book for me. Again, it got these rave reviews and everybody's like, this is amazing, this is fun. And I love retelling. So I was like, okay, that's great. And the cover was so cute and the concept was so cute. And I loved the idea of like a Comic-Con, a nerdy Comic-Con. And I just thought that aspect was so fun. What fell short was the main character. She had no character arc. She did not develop. She didn't learn, I can be independent. I'm worth something. She had to be saved by a dude. And I'm not even a feminist. And I was like, really? That's it? That's what you're giving me? You're giving me this great book, and the setting was great, and most of the characters were fun, but the main character just blew the book. And maybe it's because it's contemporary, and I'm not a huge fan of contemporaries, but I just was super disappointed. I wanted to like this book, and I know I gave it like a 3.3 because of the lack of development. Like by the end of the book, she's still like, well, I don't know. We'll see what he says I can do. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're in the 21st century. We're not in the 50s. You don't have to have your husband tell you how you feel and what you're going to be doing. And I just was like, this fell very flat for me, and I didn't like it. The biggest problem with it, in my opinion, was that everybody in BookTube loved it. And then I read it and I was like, no, this has problems. And then when I point out those problems and comment, and I'd be like, yeah, but this had a problem. Did you see that? They'll be like, yeah, but that's just a contemporary. And to me, that's not a good enough excuse. If a contemporary book is, you know, painting women as mindless and flat, or people in general as mindless and flat, and they have no control over their lives, and what happens, happens. And I just don't know what I'm going to do as these helpless people. I don't want to read that. I don't like reading about helpless people. Maybe you're helpless in the beginning, but by the end you like grow a pair of balls. And I think that's great. But when you're just helpless at the beginning and you're helpless at the end and you need other people to help you because I just don't know what I'm doing, that's annoying to me. And I want you to be independent, and I want you to learn to have independent thought. You don't have to agree with everybody, and that's okay. The book bothered me. It had a lot of problems, but again, I didn't rank it a 2 because I saw it as it's pretty good, but that one character, ugh. And I think if they would have changed the ending and given her, you know, a little gumption, a little independence, and a little something under her feet, I probably would have given it a high 3 point something, maybe even a 4.0. But the book just peed down its own leg. I didn't like it. The next one that was disappointing to me was The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell by Chris Colfer. Now, I actually listened to this one, even though I have it here. I think I had loaned it to my niece at the time, so I didn't have it, so I listened to it, and the author reads it. Usually, if the author reads the book, I am all for it. I am like, yes. Author knows what the voices sound like. The author is going to be the best person for the job. The author was the worst person for the job. He's an actor. That's the part that got me. I'm like, you're an actor. Really? I might have enjoyed it more if I would have read it and not listened to it. If and when I continue the series, I will read them and not listen to them. The plot wasn't bad. The characters weren't bad either. I kind of really liked the idea of the book. The ending of the book was a little too... And I solved everything and lined things up. I like that in a book. I do. I am guilty of liking nicely wrapped up books. But this one was too wrapped up. And then I know that there are others in the series too. So I thought, if you're going to write others, why wrap everything up? Why not leave one lingering question that's going to be your tie-in to the next book? That was a small problem. But what's more disappointing is the fact that he read this book himself. And he continually pronounced things wrong, like words wrong, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. Not that I'm perfect, but it's a huge pet peeve of mine. He would mix up the characters' voices. So one character is supposed to be Southern and one character is supposed to be British. His British turned into Southern, and his Southern turned into Texas. And I mean, he's an American. He understands we have different accents for different regions. And he just kind of put them all in a mixing bowl and picked one out. And that's one that he used for that one line. And I found it super inconsistent, the reading of it, which I will admit the vast majority of my disappointment of this book is the reading, which is why I will most likely just read the next one myself and probably like it. But in the meanwhile, I don't think I can listen to another book this man reads because it was just not good. And then they let him do that. Like nobody came in and said, hey, why don't you go, to London for 2 weeks and catch on to their accent and blah, 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 blah. No, they just let him do it. And I was like, all right. Disappointing. My 8th disappointing read is going to be Out of My Mind. And I don't remember who this is by, but I'll put it here for you. This is one I read in like April, so I don't know if I really talked about it on my BookTube channel. And this is a book that was referred to me in real life. So I was like, oh, it'll probably be great. The idea of it is pretty good. It is about a girl who is physically handicapped and she can only talk with like one of those little machines that says, hi, my name is Sam or whatever. And she's in middle school, so it is a middle grade book. However, there was no solid plot to the book. Like, things happened, but there was no like, this is our plot and this is happening and then things get worse and then they're resolved. No, nothing like that. Not even like, this is our plot, things happen and then they don't, like, nothing. Like, it was just a steady, I'm learning who this person is and this is how she gets along and these are the things and this and this and this and this, and then it just levels off. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. Like, nothing happened in this book. And I felt bad because I honestly wanted to like this book. It was super disappointing. It was super disappointing. And all I could think was, this is a great subject matter. Like, the book was interesting and I learned things. It's just there was no plot. That's all. Like, they had a little blip at the end of, this is kind of a plot, and then that was it. So I didn't like that. I loved the concept. I even loved the characters. I thought the characters are great. There was no driving force and there was no plot. So I feel like if somebody else got their hands on this book and they were like, this is going to be our controversy, this is going to be our problem, this is going to be our plot, it would have been better. It disappointed. The next one, which I think people disagree with, that I also was disappointed in, was Saga. Again, I don't remember who wrote this, but I will put that down here too. I really wanted to like Saga. I read it during a readathon. I only read the first volume. I didn't read the rest of them. And what I found about this book is it was just all about sex. Like, there were naked girls all over the pages and it was all about, okay, we're going to go have sex and I'm so mad at you. Let's have sex. And I was like, I guess you're trying to make it adult. And as much as I'm like, that's not my thing. My main problem was I felt like that was more of a central point than the plot was a central point. And I feel like they just put it in there because they wanted to make it adult. And then I was told that the rest of the series continues on in that fashion. So I'm not going to read the rest of the series. I'm not interested in reading that kind of graphic novel. I have a whole stack of graphic novels that I'm reading this month because I kind of went crazy with them. I went to the library. The library had a bunch of them and it was all fun. But I'm not going to continue on in Saga. And I know a lot of you guys like it and a lot of you guys have been like, oh, it's so great. I just don't think it is the graphic novel for me and my tastes. I'm totally fine if you guys like this. That is great for you. I will probably read different graphic novels. I was expecting this to be amazing and it did disappoint me. I didn't think it was terrible writing or drawings or anything like that. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And my 10th and last book that was disappointing to me is All the Light You Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I read this, I think in April. No, I read this in November. And it was disappointing. It was disappointing. And this is like a 5-star read. Everybody loves this book. I even told somebody while I was reading it, I'm reading this book. And I don't even think I told her, oh, you'd like it. I just said, yeah, I'm reading this book. So she went and read it. She finished it before I did. And she was like, oh my goodness, it was so good. And all I was like is, really? I didn't like it. Now, I read and listened to this book. So I was listening to it when I was driving around town and stuff. And then when I came home, I was reading the book. And I just did not connect with this book. And it just broke my little heart because I was expecting a 5-star read. And I gave it like a 3.5 or 3.6. Like, it wasn't terrible, but if it hadn't been hyped, it would have been a 4. If it hadn't been hyped, I'd be like, yeah, it was pretty good. My biggest problem is I didn't connect with any of the characters. And that is not like me. When it comes to historical fiction, I connect with characters. I can find something in there, especially historically wise, that I connect with or I see or I understand or yes, and that's a thing, but nothing. Like, the main character is a blind girl. She is French. Her father and her live in Paris. So he made this miniature city of Paris. So she knows how to get around. She memorizes it by feeling it and then she can walk around the neighborhood carefree. Well, the Nazis invade. So they move to a smaller town outside of France. They go through all the song and dance again. He makes her a little model of the city. And then she learns by feel where she is, what she's doing, all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like the plot was super slow. In addition to being super slow, at times it was non-existent. Like, at times there was no progression, no plot progression. And I get that it is an adult book. I love adult books. I get that it is a World War II book, also something that I love. But what I didn't get was any connection with the characters. I felt the book in itself was also disjointed. It really hops around from past to present and past to present. And they are not good about saying, okay, 1939, 1945. They don't say that. They say the place that they're located, but once those dates get closer together, some of the locations are the same. So it's like, it's still her in this place, but it's 1943. And then it's her in this place in 1945, but they don't tell you it's 43 and 45. So you're like, okay, wait, is this is this past her or current her? I don't know. And that is a huge pet peeve of mine. If you're gonna jump from time to time, I'm totally okay with that. You just have to tell me where we are. So this was hugely disappointing. My friend who read it, she loved it. She raved about it. She thought it was great. And I was like, good for you. I did not like this book. Now, I didn't hate it. I gave it a 3.6 or whatever. It just was a disappointment. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I feel like I was so grumpy, like talking about all these things I didn't like in books. I gotta admit, I don't like doing these videos because then I feel so grumpy and a little mean sometimes because, again, it's great if you liked this book. I didn't like this book, but that's okay. We don't have to like the same books. My sister reads nonfiction. She's like, oh, this was so great. You should read this. And I have tried, and it is difficult because I just don't love the same books she does. That is all I have for you guys today. Please feel free to like if you like. You can subscribe if you like to subscribe. You can also click the little bell icon and it'll notify you when I post a new video. I usually post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can find me here then. And I also want you guys to comment with maybe the most disappointing book you read last year. Now, I don't want the worst book that you read last year. I want a book that you were expecting here and you got here. So you didn't have to hate it. You just were expecting so much more. I will be back with my favorite books of 2017, which is a video I am very much looking forward to filming, saying that this one, I feel like I was such a grumpy pants, but whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you in a few days. Goodbye.